All right. If you have a Bible with you today, I want to invite you to find Psalms chapter 63. All right, Psalms 63. If you don't have a Bible, it'll be on the screen, so that's fine. We are kicking off a new series today, and I want to take this fall and kind of the next month or two and talk about the ideas of growing spiritually, about spiritual maturity, discipleship, growing closer to God, however you want to call it. That's what I want to kind of approach. And so we're going to call this series simply The Journey, because that's really what it is for everybody. It's a journey, and we're in different spots on that journey, and maybe there's people that are alongside of you as you're walking this out. Maybe there's people ahead of you, people behind you. Maybe there's people that are just kind of walking in circles next to you, and you're like, what should I do? Yeah, grab them by the hand, take them with you. It's a journey. It's difficult. There's mountaintops in the journey. And those are difficult to reach, but then amazing when you're in that moment, and then you kind of go down and there's valleys that you're in, and everything seems dark and difficult, and it's a journey. But as we kind of dive into this and we take the next little bit to talk through these things, I want to start today in a place that maybe feels a little bit out of left field or a little different. I want to start in a spot that I think is incredibly important for us. Because if we don't get this right, if we don't get what we're talking about today right, then nothing else really is going to matter in this series. I think this is where we have to begin. And so even as we kind of go this different direction this morning, I want us to just kind of right now be ready and be open. Even kind of language that we've used before is to sit on the edge of your seat as if you're just waiting and expecting, because you know that God has something for you this morning. Right? Just because we walk through the doors of a church doesn't mean that everything in our life is going to change. It doesn't mean that everything's great now. It doesn't even mean that we are truly spending time with God and being changed by Him. So much of that is more dependent on our attitude, on how we're approaching this time. Because you can sit there and you can kind of just, go through the motions and walk out of here the exact same. Or you can walk in and you can say, God, I know that you have something for me this morning. And I just can't wait to see what it is and to begin to be changed by that and move in the right direction. And so I would hope that each one of us just approaches this morning with the attitude of the latter there. And so why don't we do this? If you're willing and able, would you stand with me? I want to read from Psalm 63, verses 1 through 8, and then pray as we go into this message. O God, you are my God. I earnestly search for you. My soul thirsts for you. My whole body longs for you in this parched and weary land where there is no water. I have seen you in your sanctuary and gazed upon your power and glory. Your unfailing love is better than life itself. How I praise you. I will praise you as long as I live, lifting up my hands to you in prayer. You satisfy me more than the richest feast. I will praise you with songs of joy. I lie awake thinking of you, meditating on you through the night, because you are my helper. I sing for joy in the shadow of your wings. I cling to you. Your strong right hand holds me securely. God, we just pray this morning as we open up your word, Lord, that we would be changed by this time together. Lord, that we would be encouraged as we gather together as a church and as a community. God, that we would be challenged. Lord, that if we've walked in and we're feeling overwhelmed, that right now we'd even just begin to feel your peace as we just calm down, as we hand things over to you, instead of trying to do everything on our own. Lord, that we would just trust you more. So God, we just pray for this time together. Speak to us. We ask this in your name. Amen. Amen. You guys can be seated. All right, well, this week, it happened. Something I've been waiting all summer for. Finally happened. It's been long overdue, and I've been waiting, and I've been waiting, And it's always this amazing, like refreshing moment that just gives life, and it changes the way that I see things, and it changes the way I see people and the way I see the world around me. And it's arguably like the best moment of the year, and I'm just a new person every time it happens. The temperatures have dropped, and fall is here. And I woke up and I put jeans and a hoodie on, and I walked out and said, I am a new man. I love the cooler weather. Like in the summer, I can't handle it. It hits 80 and I just cancel my day. Nothing needs to happen. Just stay inside in the AC, right? Like, not actually, I wish. But I love this time of season. This time of the year, and I just like that like crisp air when you wake up. And yes, I know we have to like change to different layers like 4 times throughout the day. Like my coaching backpack at soccer practice has like 3 different like outfits in it, and you're like, okay, well now the jacket has to go on, now it has to go off, now the rain jacket has to come on. Okay, now a nice sweatshirt. Okay, and you're like constantly changing. But I love it. And then I start thinking about like everything that fall brings. Maybe our family's weird in this. We have certain movies that we only watch in the fall time. Anybody else like that? And they aren't like, I'm not saying like Charlie Brown, like Thanksgiving. Like, yeah, we watch that one in the fall. But I'm saying like, it's just other movies. You're like, this is a fall movie. I don't know how to explain it, but it is. And so we start thinking about that. We start thinking about all the things coming up. Back to school, that's a big shift in a lot of our families. And I start to think about things like Thanksgiving, and turkey, and green bean casserole, and mashed potatoes, and sweet potatoes, and cheesy potatoes, and potatoes, and like just all the potatoes. Like I just want all of those. And then I think about pie, pecan pie. It's amazing, right? Like this time of year, there's something about it. And I'm just like, okay, I'm ready. I'm ready for life again. Things are looking up. It's so good. Now, as I was having this thought and daydreaming of all this food, I'm just like, wow, my life is way too revolved around food. Anyone else ever been there? Where you're just like, I remember, there's been vacations where I go, and I'm literally just like, we just got done eating, and I'm just like, well, what are we going to do now until the next meal? Because I'm just waiting for the next meal. Even on my wife and I, on our anniversary, we were up in Grand Marais, and like we ate at one place, and everything that we had planned, the only things that were planned were our meals. We knew exactly where we wanted to eat for everything. Food is this like huge thing, and some of it's like human nature, and yes, we need it, and all these different things, but I don't know. It's also landed in this really important place, arguably maybe too important at times for some of us. And I've noticed like one of the hardest places for me to make change in my life is around food. Right? Like if I want to change other things, I want to change sleeping habits, change like how active I am, things like that it's hard, but I can do it. But you get to food and you're just like, a little while ago, my wife Emily was like, hey, I really think we should just stop eating after 8 p.m. It's usually kind of junk and it's not good and your body doesn't digest it the same. We really should stop eating after 8 p.m. Actually, she said, I'm going to. Which if you're married, what does that mean? We're going to, right? Because she can't stop eating after 8 p.m. and then I'm sitting there eating. That doesn't work. So when she made this decision, we made this decision. And so we were going to stop eating after 8 p.m. And that lasted for maybe a week. I don't know. Like we tried. And then actually she was in first service and she's like, I totally forgot we were even doing that. She's like, until you brought it up right now. I forgot that like 4 weeks ago we made that decision. Because around food, it's so hard to change things. It's this like grip that it has on us. I've been having like skin stuff recently. I have a lot of like autoimmune things. And Emily brought up the idea of like, well, maybe you should change your diet. Maybe there's things in your diet that are kind of causing this. And I was just like, absolutely not. Like, I'll give you a list of half a dozen things that it probably is. It actually isn't. But I'm still going to say it's those things because I don't want to change my diet. I don't want to change what I eat. Food has this like chokehold on us in a weird way in our society. We have this weird mix of like food brings comfort at times and food brings anxiety at times. And sometimes it's, honestly, neither of those are usually very healthy. And, and maybe it's from watching TV, and in one commercial, you see this like triple stacked cheeseburger from a fast food place that looks amazing, even though you know it never looks like that, right? Like every time you get it, it's the most disappointing thing ever. But they have this amazing burger, this like sizzling steak, and that's one commercial. And then the next commercial is all these people that like have this like perfect like body image of like this is what you're supposed to look like, and they're like in perfect shape and all these things. And we have this world that tells us like you can do both of these. You can eat this like triple decker fast food burger, and then you can look like this. And the people that always look like that, it's usually like a beer commercial too, which you're like, you're not gonna look like that when you're drinking a bunch of beer. And you're just like, our society has this weird place that we sit around food. And for a lot of people, like I said, it might bring comfort, and we need to deal with that. Or it might bring anxiety, and we need to process and deal with that. But food has always been, and always will be to an extent, a big part of our life. We need it. And what I love is actually, as you read through the Bible, food and drink is often used as an analogy. As we read Psalm 63 this morning, we see this. It says, "My soul thirsts for you. My whole body longs for you in this parched and weary land where there's no water." Then later in verse 5, it said, "You satisfy me more than the richest feast." See, food is used, the idea of hunger and thirst is used as an approach to Jesus and his presence in our life. Psalm 42 says, "As the deer longs for streams of water, so I long for you. O God, I thirst for God, the living God." When I was young, we used to sing a song that started with that, "As the deer," except we use the word pants for the water. "So my soul longeth after you." Psalm 34 says, "Taste and see that the Lord is good." Jesus talks about people being blessed who hunger and thirst for righteousness. Then he talks about himself as being the bread of life and living water, that if you drink from him, you will not thirst again. Both Peter and Paul use the analogies of milk and meat to talk about the spiritual growth process. And in the book of Revelation, it says, "It is finished. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. To all who are thirsty, I will give freely from the springs of the water of life." And then the next chapter, in chapter 22, the last chapter, last paragraph, last few verses of the Bible, it says, "The Spirit and the bride say, 'Come.' Let anyone who hears this come. Let anyone who is thirsty come. Let anyone who desires drink freely from the water of life." So why is this such a common analogy that's used for our presence with God, for his presence in our life, for the longing, the desire, for all of this? Because we have something that is such a basic, carnal, vital need. And the biblical authors put Jesus and his presence in our life on the same level. Maslow's hierarchy of needs is this pyramid that talks about the needs that humans have. And it breaks it into these little chunks. And basically the idea is, unless the chunk underneath it is being satisfied, you don't actually care about the needs above it. All right, so it's different levels of needs. And so like one of those, like we need relationship and friendship. You know, God says that at the beginning. It's not good for man to be alone. Like we need community. But the reality is, at the most basic level of Maslow's pyramid, you have things like air, water, food, sleep, shelter. And they would say, like, if you don't have those things, you're not going to care about the other things. Like, think about this. If you've gone 2.5 days without drinking water, apparently we can live like 3 days without water, all right? So I'm just trying to put us at like the end of that. 2.5 days, you have not drank water. Where is your mind at? What are you thinking about? Are you like, you know what? Man, that friend, they haven't called me in like 3 months. I really need to find some better friends. They aren't a good friend. No, at that point, you're just like, water. I need water. Like, nothing else matters until I get water. That's kind of the approach. Like, think about this. It's such a necessity in your life. So it's amazing how the biblical authors talk about our walk with Jesus, and they place it on that level. Like, unless I get this figured out, unless I've had this time in his presence with him, unless this is squared away, nothing else matters. This has to be one of the most foundational pieces of not just our spiritual life, because often we try and like segregate that out, but just our life in general. Like there's only so long you can go in a day with skipping food and water and things like that. How many of you guys skipped breakfast this morning? Anybody in the room? How many are like, I'm not a breakfast eater, and so I just always skip breakfast? Okay, so they're probably not as hungry. The other ones that put their hands up, if you're a breakfast eater and you skipped it, you're probably feeling that right now. I did. I don't eat a good breakfast, but I have Pop-Tarts on Sunday mornings. And I didn't have my Pop-Tarts this morning, and I'm feeling it. Right? Like, you begin to reach that point. Now, here's the thing. I'm good. I can make it. I'm going to make it through the message. No one needs to bring me any food, okay? But if all of a sudden I hit lunchtime and I just get busy and I skip lunch, am I going to start to feel it? You bet. And all of a sudden I'm going and it's like mid-afternoon and it's getting into the evening. You're going to reach this spot of like desperation where you're like, man, I haven't eaten all day. And this happens to me. I have a personality, like if you do those personality types, my personality, it is said in multiple different tests, this person will forget to eat if they don't schedule it. And like, so that's just who I am, apparently. And so this will happen. I'll reach dinner time and I'm like, I haven't eaten today. What's wrong with me? And you start to feel it and you get hungry and nothing else matters. You're no longer a good worker, a good employee, right? You're just irritable, you're angry. You're not a good friend, you're not a good spouse, you're not a good parent, because you're like, listen, I just need to get food. Like, don't talk to me. It's the Snickers commercials, right? Like, man, you seem a little hungry. You need a Snickers. Here's the $1 million question. Is that how you would describe your walk with Jesus? Where if you skip a moment, if you skip a time, if you skip a morning, if you skip a day, do you begin to feel that pain? Those hunger pains that something is lacking and something is missing? Do you reach a spot where you're like, it doesn't matter what else is on my calendar. I have to stop, I have to clear my calendar, and I have to eat. I have to spend time with God. Does that describe our walk with Him? Last fall, we did a series on practicing the way. Our sermons went through it. All of our life groups went through it. It was a big thing. And I know if you were here, you couldn't avoid it. But for a lot of us, it was very impactful. It really illuminated things in a new way of what it meant to be a follower of Jesus. Not just a follower, but the language that was used was an apprentice of Jesus. What did it mean in the first century, and what does it mean for us today to truly follow Him? Not just go to church, not just call yourself a Christian, not just tick a box. What did it truly mean? And for a lot of us, this was pivotal, and it shifted things, and we changed things in our life, and we created habits, and we did things about it. Where are you at a year later? Where are those habits at? If you were here, if you weren't here last fall, if you had moments like this, where you make changes and you're intentional about it, but then all of a sudden over time, it just kind of drifts away. And you fall back into old habits, into old patterns of how you previously did things. We're going to spend some weeks in this series where we are going to talk about spiritual growth and discipleship. And we're going to lay out what parts of that journey or process may look like. We're going to try to give some practical ways to move forward in that for us. And we actually have something that Pastor Corey and I have been working on this for about a year, that we're going to kind of introduce, that is just called a spiritual or a discipleship pathway. Because lots of times people are like, well, man, I started coming to church and it was great and I was excited and my life began to change. And now I don't know what to do. And I just feel like it's in the same spot and things aren't what they were supposed to be. And I used to be excited. What does that mean? Does that mean God's not moving anymore? Does that mean that this whole thing was fake and it was just emotional to begin with? No, usually what it means is we're spinning our wheels because we just don't know what we should be doing next. And when that happens, we often start looking in a lot of different places because we feel like we just aren't satisfied and we're looking for that. Honestly, there's a hunger in our life, and we're trying different things, trying to fulfill that appetite, and we don't know what's next. And if we're turning to the world, it never will satisfy. And so we're going to talk through this discipleship pathway, and we're going to challenge you to come up with a plan and a vision for what spiritual growth over the next year in your life might look like. Because listen, if we want to get physically healthier, we usually come up with a plan. When we are working at a job, you might have a 5-year plan of where you want to be and how you want to maybe get this promotion or do this and make this much money and go to this job. Like, you have a plan and you kind of work the plan. If you want to move towards retirement, you have to have a plan. And we have all these different plans, but how many of us truly have a plan for our spiritual growth? No, I think we just are like, well, I'm just going to keep doing this and go to church, and haphazardly somehow this is going to happen. And I'm going to mature and I'm going to grow and all these things are going to happen. We need a plan. And all of that's great. And we're going to talk about a plan. We're going to lay this out. But that's not where we start. Because here's the thing. Growing in our walk with Jesus and reaching this spot, it doesn't start with a plan. It starts with a desire. It starts with a desire that you actually want that. Right? Like, think about this. If you go to the doctor and the doctor says, listen, you need to be healthier. You need to be eating healthier. Stop eating so much salt. You know, like, just, you can still eat that, but stop adding the extra salt on top of it or whatever it might be. You need to start exercising a little bit. And you walk out of the doctor's office and you're like, oh man, I don't want to do that. Oh, I hate this. I don't want to change my diet. I don't want to have to go for walks. Does it matter how good your plan is at that moment? Are you going to follow through on that? If you actually don't care about it and you don't want that, like, it doesn't matter how good your plan is. You're not going to move in a healthy direction. It first starts with, I have a desire and a longing to be healthy, and now the plan comes along and gives me structure to move forward in the way that I need to move forward. But it starts with a hunger. It starts with a thirst for something more. It starts with a longing. We have to be able to get to a spot where it's like if we skip a meal, that we begin to long for what we're missing. You know, I've heard the analogy before of like being connected to God is like your source of air that you need. Think of like swimming, and you're out in the water and you need to be connected to that air. The problem with humans is we can hold our breath. And I think that like for some of us, I mean, that's not actually a problem. That's a good thing when you're swimming, right? But the problem for us, when you take that analogy to the spiritual side of things, is that some of us have reached a spot where we are disconnected from our source because we've been holding our breath for far too long. And so we need to reach this place where we have this longing, this desire to be connected. And so we're going to take the rest of our time this morning. And I'm purposely, wrote a shorter message, and we want to kind of move in this direction. We're just going to take some time here at the end. And we're just going to spend some time with God. So in fact, actually, worship team, if you guys would come. And we're going to spend some time going after him. And I want to challenge you, like as I was thinking through this, and we're like, okay, so we need to have a desire. Well, what happens if I don't have a desire? Like I want a desire, but I don't have that. I missed that time, and it doesn't feel like I really missed anything. How do I start to have an appetite? Well, you know what? Using the food analogy, I actually just Googled that. Like, how do you create an appetite? Like physically, if you want to be eating more. And as I read through some of the answers there, I'm like, this is brilliant, how this just maps onto us spiritually. You know what the first thing was? If you don't have a big appetite and you want to grow in an appetite, and this is talking about food, all right? I'm going to let you guys immediately make the jump to spirituality, all right? But about food, if you don't have an appetite and you need an appetite, start eating small amounts more frequently. It's like if you've ever fasted and you've come off of a fast, you know that you probably shouldn't jump in right away and just eat this big, massive meal. There's actually issues when some of the groups that we support will go to places where there isn't enough food. And they're trying to bring in meals for kids and things like that, where they can't just give them all of this food because you'll eat too much and it will actually hurt your stomach. And so some people spiritually, they're like, Pastor, you're right. Man, I haven't been spending time with God. Starting today, 2 hours every day. I'm doing it. Okay, love the ambition. If you're going from nothing to 2 hours, I hate to be the pessimist, but you're probably going to fail. Like, that's just how it works. You want to increase this appetite for God's presence in your life? Start with small amounts more frequently. Could you say, hey, I can do 5 minutes each morning? And something interesting happens. When you start spending time with God, all of a sudden you start to want more of it. It's kind of like all of a sudden you like sit down one day and you're like, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to eat a salad for lunch. And you eat it and you're like, that wasn't that bad. That actually was kind of good, and I feel really good right now. Or you're like, okay, I'm going to go and I'm going to exercise. I'm going to go for a run. And you get done and you're like, well, yeah, like I'm dying, but you know what? I kind of like that. Maybe I want to do that more. And all of these things, the more you do it, the more it creates this appetite, this longing, this desire in your life. Another way that you increase your appetite is you make it something that you enjoy. Make it social. Okay, maybe you're like, I really struggle at reading. I just don't like sitting down and reading my Bible. You know what? There's audio Bibles that you can listen to if you're going to enjoy that more. Or maybe you're like, man, I just really struggle to sit there and pray. And maybe that's where some of that structure comes in, and you make this something that you're going to enjoy. If you struggle with an appetite, it says schedule it. That's where that can help you. Get up, stick to the schedule. And then the last one, it said this, be physically active. If you want to grow your appetite, be physically active. Okay, how does that transfer to us with spiritual? Here's the thing. If you're not spending time with God, but then all of a sudden, your life demands that you begin to be spiritually active, you're going to feel like, oh, man, if I'm using this, I need an input. If there's an output, I need an input. If I'm going to have an output, if I'm going to go for a run, I shouldn't do that if I haven't eaten it all today. I need an input so I can do an output. Start stepping out and allowing God to use you. And I'll tell you what, really quickly, you're going to realize I need more of God in my life because I can't do this on my own. If I'm going to say every single day, I'm going to go up to somebody and just say, hey, could I pray for you? Some of you guys are going to be like, yeah, I need to spend time with God before I start doing that. Yeah. Have an output that's going to demand an input. There's a pastor in our denomination that he's a big church out in Washington, D.C. He's written a lot of books, and one of the lines that's really stuck with me is he says this. It's a book talking about prayer. And he says, a change of pace plus a change of place equals a change of perspective. For this fall, some of us are in the room and you're like, I need this fall to be different. It can't be like last fall. I need things to change. My fall can't be like this summer. I need a shift. I need something to change. We're going into a new season. I need a new season. Okay, well, we can't always control everything around us and the life that we're in and the situations we have, but we can change, we can control our perspective of our life that we're in. And so I want to challenge you. Before we start talking about plans and discipleship and spiritual growth, we need to find this place where we hunger, we thirst, we long for God's presence. And so we're going to respond here. Why don't we do this? If you're willing and able, would you stand just across the room? And I was thinking about the church and how it's changed back in the 70s, 80s, 90s. There's this big thing that really kind of took hold. It's called the church growth movement, right? And it was about like, man, churches need to be growing. We need to be reaching people. And at its heart, it's good, right? Like you want people to find Jesus. But there are some things that I think we lost along that path because we weren't careful. And it's this idea of like you're going to have a well-polished Sunday morning service. It's going to be 75 minutes. Get them in and out. That's what people want. That's what they have on their calendar. And we've lost something. We've lost the ability to just wait on God. We've lost the correct pace of life where we just are slow enough that we can walk with Him. And I want to challenge us this morning to say, okay, let's take some time. Let's focus on Him. If we think that we're going to do this week, if we're going to try and build this hunger, this thirst, this appetite, this desire, this longing, I think it starts right now. So the worship team's going to, in a moment here, go back into a song. And we're going to do something that happened a lot when I was young. When I was young, we went to church every Sunday morning, every Wednesday night, and quite often on Sunday nights, the thing that's disappeared from our world, Sunday night church services. And Sunday night services were just different. You know, you just sit there and you know, to use some old language, you would tarry. You would wait on the Lord. I remember the message was always shorter. And then they would do something that they'd say, they call it opening up the altars. And essentially that the altar was this space down front. And people would move down front and they would spend time going after God. They'd stand, they'd kneel, they'd sit, they'd pray, they'd worship. And it would just linger and linger and linger. And as a little kid, I remember this because, man, I just got so tired of that, like as a kid. And so I was either in the back and I was like laying down sleeping on the pew, or I had grabbed the Bible and was reading through Revelation because that's a trip. And it's just really fun to read as a little kid. You're like, all right, I'm bored. I'm going to go read about this dragon chasing the pregnant lady. And that's entertaining for me. Some of you guys are like, wait, there's a book in the Bible? Yeah, okay, we'll talk later. But we've missed that. And so I want to challenge us. We have to start here. We have to start here. It has to be here. It has to be this longing, this desire, this hunger, this thirst. And so we're going to go into a song, and we're going to open up the altars. Wherever you're at, I'd challenge you, change your pace, and maybe that's even your mind right now. Maybe you're like, oh man, we got to get going. I got this going on. I got this. Slow your mind down. Change your pace. Maybe even change your place. Maybe you want to leave your seat. Maybe you want to go from standing to being seated again in a moment and make a little space right where you're at. Maybe you want to come down front. You want to find a place along the stairs or in the front or something like that. And I realize maybe that's uncomfortable for you. This isn't something we do often, but I want to challenge you today. Change your pace, change your place, and allow God to change your perspective on this fall. And change your perspective on what it looks like to just pursue him this fall. Because if you want a different fall, like this is where it begins. So I'm going to pray, we're going to go into the song, and then after the song, I'll come back up and I'll close this out and dismiss us. So God, we thank you for this time that we have, that we can slow down, not think about everything else that's going on in life. Just focus in on you. God, I pray for people in the room that right now are feeling anxious about this fall. Lord, that you would bring your peace. You would bring your stability into their life. God, that you would leave us in this place of desperation. God, that every day we wake up, and maybe it's just like today's manna is what we need. And we can't gather for tomorrow. We can't plan for next week and next month. We need to just rely on you day by day. So God, we just pray that over the next few minutes, over the next few days, weeks, and months, Lord, that you would draw near to us as we draw near to you. We know you will. Your word says you will. And God, that we would be changed. I think for a lot of us, myself included, I think we often make some excuses or we make some concessions around our time with God. And honestly, it's probably not too unlike everything else we're talking about. And water, and you get told, oh, you got to drink this much water. And you're like, yeah, but there's water in coffee, right? There's water in pop. I mean, I know it's not like an ounce for ounce type thing, but yeah, it might be a little bit subpar, but hey, it still counts. I think some of us, we've done that spiritually. Yeah, but I got some Jesus in my life this morning. I was on Instagram, but I follow a couple Christian people that are always posting things about Jesus. So I got a little bit of Jesus, right? And yeah, on my drive to work, I kind of said a prayer or two on my drive. Yeah, I also yelled at the person that pulled out in front of me and wasn't going fast enough. But I said a prayer. And we kind of have this watered down, kind of well, not watered down, the opposite of that. We're just missing what needs to be there. And I think we just need to have these moments with Jesus. And I think sometimes we're settling for less of his presence, and we're doing it as a bit of an excuse. And I'm excited where we're going to go in this series. Next week, I want to talk about the idea of the wilderness. It's a biblical theme that is so crucial to so many people's growth, and yet for so many of us, we despise the idea of being in the wilderness and not knowing what's next, and we're waiting, and we're like, God, what do you have? And often we get to choose if we want to be, the Israelites in the wilderness that just complain for 40 years. They complain the whole way, and they get kicked back in, and they complain, and they complain, and they complain. Instead of, Jesus spends time in the wilderness and comes out the other side and is ready and is launched into what God has for him. So the wilderness is a beautiful thing. It brings you closer to God and or death. And I think often we kind of need that. So I'm excited about that, but this is where it begins. Tonight, it's the first Sunday of the month. Tonight we have prayer. And prayer I love our Sunday night prayers. It's nothing like Sunday morning. and lots of times it's not tons of people at it. And I always kind of joke about this. I said, everybody wants to be part of a church that prays. It's just people don't want to be the ones to do that praying sometimes. And last month, we just kind of had a special time at our Sunday night prayer. And as we were feeling all these different things, that there's a season shift and a change that's coming in our church, last month, Sunday night prayer was key for me in that. And so, actually, I'd love for Jonathan to even kind of do a little bit of like the invite for prayer tonight and share a little bit of like last month and kind of what happened for him. Go for it.
So you guys probably know me. If you don't, I've been going here for almost 4 years this coming spring, and I never ever went to Sunday night prayer. It was always something that I was like, I should probably go there, but I've been here for 6 hours. I got my time with God. I'm gonna chill and just, do my start my Sabbath.
You had gone home for the afternoon.
20-minute drive. Oof. And then I took a little time off, and when I came back, I had this just absolute hunger in my soul, and I couldn't describe. I'm like, okay, I know I need more of God. How is this going to happen? And the Sunday night announcement happened, and I'm like, okay, I have to go tonight. And it was so on purpose because it was such a beautiful moment with community, and we all just were praying, and we all kind of ended up, like, a few of us had the same thing that God was kind of telling us, and we went up to a mic and we were like talking about it, and it was amazing. For me, it was such an amazing time of like, wait, why wasn't I doing this? But yeah, I really, really, really encourage it.
And he had gotten up, he's just like, I need to do this all the time. Like, I've heard this, sat here, heard this announcement forever, made excuses, and he's just like, now that I've taken this step, I want to keep doing this. And so I just feel that challenge for us too. That I think there's things that God's already been speaking to you of whatever the next step might look like, and it just takes some follow through in some of that. And so we'd love to have you you don't have to get up and share or speak or anything like that. Don't be intimidated by that. You're just going to come. We're just going to be in this room, and you just have time to just sit in God's presence. So I'm gonna close this in prayer. God, we thank you, Lord, that we have this ability to be connected with you, to be in your presence, to seek after you. God, we don't need a mediator. We don't need somebody else to do this for us. God, we have this direct relationship with you. And so, God, I just pray even right now, Lord, for each one of us that we would hunger, we would thirst, we would long for more of your presence in our life. God, that whatever it is that you're going to bring our church through this fall, Lord, we can feel this anticipation of something that you're going to do. But God, at the same time, I've been slightly terrified because we feel that you're doing something, but I also feel like we aren't ready for where it is that you want to lead us. And so, God, I pray that we would be doing what our role in this is, what our part is, so that we are ready, so that when you move, we move. That we follow you. God, we don't want to go out from anywhere without your presence. We don't want to go where you aren't. God, and we know that you're everywhere, Lord, but that awareness of your presence and that intentionality is what we seek. So God, help us to just be so connected with you this week. Lord, that this would be the start of a fresh new season in our life. Jesus, we ask this in your name. Amen.